right, looks like we're ready to go, folks. Welcome to the Plan Commission meeting for April 21st, 2020. For those that are watching on TV, if you're sick of Netflix, we're here for you. And given the length of our agenda, we may be here a long time. Although if we are purposeful and quick in our work, then we will get through this as So with that, let us call the roll, seeing as we don't have much of an audience.
Erickson?
Here.
Ford?
Here.
Hintz?
Present.
Palmieri?
Here.
Perry?
Here.
Prop?
Here.
Kulabali? Kiefer? And Wojtek.
Here. Moving on.
7 present.
All right, moving on to the approval of the minutes from March 17th. Do we have any additions, corrections, deletions to those minutes?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, there we go. Moving on to item 1A. Do we do these one at a time?
We'll do one presentation with separate votes. We wanted you to have the big picture on what the project may entail, so we put them together on the agenda.
Okay. Item 1A is comprehensive land use plan map amendment from light density residential to medium and high density residential for properties located at 2600 block of Witzel Avenue. Any site inspections by my house? We accept the staff report as part of the record. On to y'all. Brian?
Chairman. So this request has two separate items. One is a comprehensive land use plan map amendment, and one is a rezone. So the subject site is located on the south side of Witzel Avenue, west of Southwest Haven Drive. The site is currently zoned SR5. It's a vacant lot. It has neighboring multifamily residential to the east and to the north, Mercy Medical Center to the south, and single-family residential to the west. Here's the comprehensive land use map of the area. So the site is currently slated for light density residential land use. To the east, we have medium to high density residential. To the north, we have medium to higher density residential, along with some light density. And to the west, we have light density residential. So the applicant is proposing to have that site change on the comprehensive land use map from light density to medium to high density residential land use. And with that, they'd like to rezone from SR5 to MR12. Here's an aerial view of the subject site. Again, we have the multifamily to the east and single family to the west, which is Town of Algoma. Site currently vacant. Here is their preliminary site plan for the multifamily use that they're proposing. It will have 12 unit apartment buildings for a total of 144 units, be 2-story buildings. And here is kind of a renderings of what they anticipate the buildings to look like. So the site also does include 2 smaller lots to the northwest, which they're proposing to combine for 1 lot, which they would like to have zoned MR12. The applicant did have a virtual neighborhood meeting on April 3rd. I believe 4 neighbors were in attendance. Their main concerns were stormwater runoff, provided green space, and potential views from the adjoining properties. And we did make them aware that there are city standards that they would need to meet when they do come forward with their building plans for stormwater runoff and buffer yards to address those concerns. So staff is supportive of the proposed map amendment, as the medium to high density residential land use is consistent with surrounding land uses, and it will be consistent with development patterns in the surrounding area. Staff is also supportive of the rezone request from SR5 to MR12, as the MR12 district is it's consistent with the neighboring zoning districts to the east and to the north, and will be compatible with the surrounding land uses and properties. So with that, staff is supportive of the comprehensive land use map amendment to medium to high density residential, and also supportive of the rezone to MR12 district.
All right, thank you. Technical questions from the commission?
I'll add just
Go
a
ahead,
couple of
Just a-
comments as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
just
sorry.
a quick question. So this is consistent with our desire to increase density, correct?
Yeah, so this property was left under the low-density residential when we did the comp plan amendment because it was still owned by the hospital, and we weren't sure what their plans were going to be for it at the time, so we didn't feel it was appropriate to change the land use designation at that time when there was still some unknown. I can say the primary land use that we've had people interested in this parcel over the last several years has been medium-density residential, which is what this property would constitute if developed. So it does really make sense. I just wanted to point out, we left it that way because of the unknown with the hospital owning it.
Okay, thanks.
Other technical questions? Go ahead, John.
Have we talked with the school board about impact on the schools with having these apartments there?
School board is sent all the documentation. Typically, we don't hear back from them.
Anything else technically wise? Okay.
I will note just for Plan Commission, I just handed out a packet of information. There is an email we received as kind of with the COVID stuff. Some people have been encouraged to send digital communication if they did not want to attend. So we did receive an email from a Terry Rudolph, and I have it printed out for you if you'd like to read it. He did want his comments entered as part of the record, and we will enter it into the file as well.
All right. Anyone here from the public to speak to this item today?
It had Brian's name on the top of it.
I don't think I got Stephen Wiley.
Yep, there should be two from
don't
with Steven's
see
name
that.
on one with Brian on his name.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there it is, yep.
Anyone here from the public to speak to this item today?
I have a couple concerns.
Come on up, sir, and if you could take the microphone and state your name and address so we have it for the record. Thank you very much.
Michael Ports, 2628 Witzel Ave.
Yeah.
I guess my concern is years ago, they were gonna develop a lot of that. Our properties were gonna get purchased up from Wilmere, back in 2005. City had a different idea as far as planning. Some of the same buildup was requested at that time. Mercy Medical wasn't any option as far as selling that property adjacent from me. Obviously with all the condos and apartments that are in that area, I've been there 22 years, kind of a higher transit area. Obviously we've stuck, myself and my neighbors have stuck considerable amount into our properties out there. I don't know how that area can maintain or sustain that type of housing with that amount of units, because the units behind us are almost vacated. I mean, they're not full. They've never operated at full capacity.
Which ones are the ones behind
It
you?
would be owned by Marks.
The country,
To the east,
No, it'd be to the north.
to the north.
I'm on the corner of Meriden and Witzel.
Bring that map
So basically, the property that you're discussing is right at my front door, right across the street.
okay. All right, thank you, sir.
All right.
Anyone else here to speak to this item today? Okay, seeing none, back to the commission.
Can that map be pulled up so I can see where his address is?
Yeah, Brian will. So you're the northeast corner, I believe.
Correct. Right across the street, right there. Right on the corner.
Yep. I know where that is. All right. Does anybody accept the findings and recommendation?
Motion to accept findings and recommendations as stated by staff.
Second? And it's been seconded? Okay, discussion.
This is just for 1A.
1A, this is what,
Yeah, when
yep,
1A. Who was the second? Sorry.
Lindsay.
any of us.
Thomas?
When this is initially proposed, is there any indication from the developer on how they're going to meet our identified deficits in terms of two-bedroom, three-bedroom, wheelchair accessible units, those types of things?
So the applicant's here, may be able to bring him up for questions.
You're looking at a development of 144 units, roughly. How many would be two bedrooms, three bedrooms, fully wheelchair accessible, and your initial development right now?
All two bedrooms and no wheelchair accessible. So it's not set up for the call it the elderly or assisted living type stuff.
Okay, the elderly aren't the only ones that use wheelchairs, but I do believe that the city really needs to look at developments that have a certain percentage of those types of spaces, since it is a significant deficit in the city.
You stay there for a minute, we might have some more questions. Any other questions for the developer, as long as he's up here? Thank you. Other comments, discussion? And again, this item is, we're changing the land use
This is the
Ma'am?
comp plan amendment.
comp plan amendment. Seeing no discussion, let us call the roll.
That's me.
It's a little
Used to mean
confusing.
it doing it. Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Hintz,
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri,
Aye.
Perry,
No.
Prop,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Carried 6-1.
Moving on to item 1B, public hearing, zone change from single-family residential 5 SR5 district to multifamily residential MR12 district for properties located at 2600 block of Witzel Avenue. And we already talked about having site visits, or where do we go from here? Does Brian have any more to say, or do we just want to?
Just, I don't think, is there any additional questions? That's kind of the state law dictates that a rezone request must be consistent with your comprehensive land use plan. So in order for this project to go forward, they first must get approved for the comprehensive plan amendment to medium density, then the zone change can follow.
Okay, so he's already presented, so we've done our technical questions. Is there anyone here from the public who wants to speak to this portion of the item today? Just changing the zone change? Seeing none, back to the commission. Do we have a motion to adopt the findings?
Motion to accept the findings, recommendations as stated in the staff report. I think that's it.
Motion to adopt it.
Adopt.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And Mayor Palmieri was our second. Okay, back to the commission for discussion and a vote. Any further issues on this one? All right,
So it-
call, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
All right, so this is still the email that we received in relation to this item. It says 1A and B. So do you need to read that in as well?
No, we can just note that it's for the project in its entirety.
I guess, I neglected to say this on A, but it does appear that the individual was concerned with the fact that only 4 of the Barton Road residents were able to attend the virtual video conference. How many invitations went out to that?
We can ask the applicant what the total number was. They had done a mailing and then we had to change it to virtual after unfortunately, the COVID stuff. We didn't want to hold a public meeting. Do you know approximately how many people that was sent to?
It would have been, I would say, over 50.
So I'm sure the attendance was impacted by the situation.
Okay, thank you.
Other thoughts or discussion? All right, call the roll.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Hintz,
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri,
Aye.
Perry,
No.
Prop,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Carried 6-1.
Okay, moving on to item 2, public hearing for conditional use permit request to expand outdoor storage areas at 3300 Medalists Drive. Do we have any site inspections in that area? We may have had some previously from previous stuff. We accept the staff report as part of the record. On to you, staff.
Give Stephen a second to.
All right.
Brian, could you see if there's anyone in the break room for this item?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet.
Sorry for the delay here.
No worries.
So yes, item 2 is a conditional use permit request for Medalist. You all have seen this site before, but we'll go over it here. You can see the subject site up there on the screen. So it used to be 2 parcels. It was recently combined into 1 to kind of clean it up and make it a little bit easier to accommodate some of their plans for this site long-term. There's 2 buildings on the site right now. One's industrial and one is office, and I think they're both leased from Smet by Oshkosh Defense. You can see that it's, those are all zoned heavy industrial, the subject site and some of the immediate surrounding sites are. And then some institutional, and then some residential over on the east there, institutional on the west. Here's an aerial of it. So this is a little bit older, but you can see up on the northwest corner of the site, I think that was the first CUP request that came through for outdoor storage. And then there is that small, I wish I had a pointer here, but there's a small lot there just to the east of the main building, kind of down on the southern portion of the site, almost in the middle there. That was, I believe, the second request. That was another outdoor storage lot. Thanks, Mark. Right here. And then what they did was, if you remember late last year, they actually came before this body. We had a workshop with them to discuss long-term plans, what route they wanted to go. They came through initially for a third CUP for outdoor storage on the southern portion right here, just under, or just to the south of this extent of the building here. And then they also mentioned fencing off this rear access to secure it. So now they're before us today. Here's another view of it here. And they've got some pretty, some plans that have some pretty big impact on the site. They're going to be adding some impervious area. They're going to be greatly expanding. So you can see here, all this in orange is basically expanding storage area, both here on the eastern half of the site. They're going to convert this existing access to secured storage. And then they're also going to convert part of this existing parking on the southern portion, southwest portion of the site, I should say, to secured outdoor storage. They're going to be adding a little bit of impervious down here. They're going to be adding gravel area here. They're going to maintain this area here in green. And then up here, actually, they're going to be removing that storage and converting it back to parking. That's about 11,000 square feet that they're going to remove the fencing around that and the gates, convert that back to parking. I think total new impervious area is 113,000 square feet. I want to note too that they're planning to widen this existing access drive here and bring it down to what will become a proposed parking area here. So this is also new, and that's for employee parking there. So kind of a lot going on here. As far as parking on the site, just making sure I hit everything here. They, with the loss, kind of the net, I guess, it's a net gain. They're going to be losing some parking and gaining, so ultimately they're going to be gaining parking on the site. We look at parking for the industrial in terms of number of employees on the largest shift, and then over for the office part of it, it's based on square footage of that office component there. We did run the parking calculations from a staff standpoint and found that they are within the range allowable by code. So they are compliant with what they're proposing here. This here, just another site plan. This actually, I think, is showing landscaping here. So we go through that. You've probably seen before some of the fencing that they proposed. For the storage areas, that's a big component, the screening part of it. But then the landscaping is the other component that they're gonna have to add to the site. Landscaping is going to be for the paved area. So if we zoom in here, you can see some of the paved area landscaping proposed for the new parking area. So they're gonna have to have the islands, they're gonna have to have some of the perimeter landscaping if they're not able to meet it all within the paved area. I think their point totals were compliant with the code. They're gonna have to work with us as staff because there are a few species that they were proposing for landscaping that are either prohibited or in the use sparingly section of the ordinance. So we're gonna work with them on that for site plan review. The other part of the landscaping required is the yard landscaping. So basically, if you're adding any building area or impervious area, we consider that in addition to the site. So they're gonna have to add yard landscaping. I believe they have to add about 1,131 points of yard landscaping. I think it's 10 points for every 1,000 square feet of area that they're adding, or every actually 100, if I remember correctly. Just looking at this. 10 points for every 1,000 square feet. Just getting this mixed up here. So they're proposing that around just to kind of soften up some of the site here. You know, it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but it is shown on the landscaping plan along with the paved area landscaping. So that's the landscaping part of it. Again, I mentioned fencing briefly, but it's the kind of the standard 98% opaque privacy 8-foot solid fence. We have approved this in the past. If they deviate from this, they would have to submit specifications to staff for review. Just making sure I go through this. Lighting, the lighting proposed, it's really going to be for the new parking area. They're going to have to make sure that that complies with ordinance regulations. They have not submitted a photometric plan. They will have to do that for the site plan review process. No signage changes are being proposed for the site. Nothing for the building facades. No changes to the existing buildings. For stormwater management and utilities, they have not submitted erosion and grading plans. Since they are impacting the site with impervious area, they are going to have to submit full stormwater package and information for DPW review. Late last week, actually, Public Works did bring to our attention as staff and planning, they told us that there were some groundwater monitoring wells that are on that site. And so the applicant is going to have to account for those. Those are regulated by the DNR, and the applicant's going to have to work with Public Works during the site plan review process to address those groundwater monitoring wells. Just making sure here. Other than that, we as staff do not have any concerns, you know, as long as this work is implemented as conditioned here. So you can see some of our standard conditions up there. The solid 8-foot fence that I mentioned, at least 98 or 90% opaque, but in their case, they're proposing the 98%. Submitting a revised landscaping plan. So they had the point totals, it looked like, when I reviewed it, but again, they're gonna have to change some of the species on that plan. Code compliant lighting or photometric plan for the parking lot area is going to be required. They're not going to be making any changes to the existing access drives, either from Medalist or West 33rd, except for widening that drive on the north side of the site from West 33rd, as I mentioned. We're going to require them to show that on the landscaping plan, how much they're widening that by. They will remove the outdoor storage area and all associated fencing on the northwest side of the site. So that small 11,000 square foot area I mentioned, they're going to get rid of that in exchange for expanding the other areas. And I believe actually that is it for conditions for this one.
Okay, thank you. Technical questions?
Couple of additional comments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just for note, this property also required a variance from the Industrial Review Committee for our covenants and restrictions. Our zoning code allows 70% impervious for the area. The covenants and restrictions allow 60%. This property is at 65, so it meets our zoning ordinance, but it did not meet the covenants and restrictions that had been placed on it a number of years ago. So the Development Review Committee that oversees those covenant restrictions did grant it that waiver to go up to the 65%. And we do have, in your packet of information I handed out today, again, a letter from a Mr. Richard Fisher, who is one of the petitioners on this project. So we want to make sure that's entered into the record as well.
Mayor Palmieri, you had your hand up.
It was actually related to the impervious
Yep.
surface part. So 113,075 square feet of new impervious area, including the gravel and that. How much reduction in green space? I know it says that staff said conversion of approximately 23,700 square feet of existing parking and green space. Do we have a sense of how much lost green space? And
I do not have a square footage total for you. I can say they are going to about 65.1% total impervious surface for the site, which is about 5% under what the maximum would allow. It is a relatively large expansion.
thank you.
Other technical questions? Okay, seeing none. Is there anybody here from the public to speak to this item today? I see no one. Okay, public hearing is closed. We have a motion to adopt the findings and recommendation.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Have a second?
Second.
All right, it's been first and second. Not any discussion on this. Go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, so I see that this is a fourth request changing the CUP as it was originally intended, and I guess one question would be too, ordinarily now, would this come more as a PD as opposed to a CUP?
Not necessarily, because they haven't actually asked for waivers from the code. Everything they've done to this point, in large, has met the code requirements. This does replace one of the original CUP was that outdoor storage on the north. As they started to develop out this site and learn the capacity of it, that's now being removed as they've went to larger full-scale redevelopment of the area. But everything has largely been within the code requirements. That's why they've done as conditional use permits, and they've not needed any variances. We try to hold plan developments for when landscaping variances need to be waived or setbacks, something unique. This is a lot of requests, no doubt, but they have all been code compliant requests.
And the other question is, would something like this with, or even other impacts potentially to stormwater go typically to the stormwater utility or not?
They typically do not if they fall under the maximum code requirement. So when we do our planning and write our ordinances and work with Public Works, we set that threshold at a number. So for example, this area is 70%. So we plan our facilities for up to that level of development. If they were to exceed that 70%, then additional stormwater requirements would be triggered and processes would have to take place. As long as you stay kind of under that cap, then it's just working with Public Works to make sure they can meet their full stormwater requirement needs on their own site.
Yeah, I just have some real challenges with supporting, that much of an expansion of the impervious surface area. I mean, even given, some of the additional landscaping points and things like that, I mean, our stormwater, this is just under, right? And so I'm not sure if I'll be able to support this, but thanks.
Other thoughts? All right. Seeing none, let us vote.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Hintz,
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri,
No.
Harry,
Aye.
Prop,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Carried 6-1.
All right, and on to item number 3, public hearing, amendment number 2 to tax increment district number 14, Mercy Medical Center redevelopment. We have site inspections over there, down by the old hospital, for those that don't remember. All right, we accept the staff report as part of the record. On to y'all.
All right, this one's me.
All right.
So a lot of what I'm going to say for this item is going to apply to the next 2 items. We had a joint review board meeting earlier today as well to discuss these same proposals. So what's taking place here is we're trying to come up with some unique ways to help local businesses during COVID-19. One of the ways that we can potentially do that, Brian, could you grab me the clicker, is we're looking at some potential for some revolving loan funds. through a varied degree of different funding mechanisms. Some current revolving loan funds we have through Go EDC, and one of the options that we came up with is looking at some of our TIFs that have a current cash balance. In both the project plans you'll see on pages 10 and 11 is where it talks about cash balances. What we're proposing to do is take $250,000 from the cash balance of TID District number 14, use it as a donor TID, and move that $250,000 to TID 16, so we can use it for a revolving loan fund to help small businesses during COVID-19. This is about a quarter of the funding that we're proposing for that funding mechanism. So like I said, it's an attempt to try to find ways to help businesses as much as we can in the city. This is some money that is available. Talking through the taxing jurisdictions, it seemed to make sense to try to do what we can to help small business.
So we can just clarify, the reason why the financial piece of this is coming to Plan Commission is because of the TID
So
district
because we are
itself?
doing essentially a donor TID transfer, that is a project plan amendment that was not part of the original project plan for TID 14. Anytime we want to amend a TID project plan, it's essentially the same process as when we created the TID. We go back through Joint Review Board, Plan Commission, Council, final JRB approval. That same process has to take place to amend anything within the project plan. That original project plan did not include language for being a donor TID.
Other technical questions, as long as we're going in that direction? Go ahead.
The history, Mark, have we done this before?
We have done
Other
donor.
purposes, yeah.
We've done donor TIDs in the past. Yes, obviously nothing quite as unique to this situation, but yes, we have used donor TIDs in the city for various reasons over the years.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Other technical questions for Mark? Okay, seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Just our TV viewers, all right. Then we'll close public hearing, and anybody here will make a motion to adopt the findings and recommendation.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as staff report.
Second. Seconded by Kathy. Discussion on this rather unique request. Former Mayor Prop, who has the most experience here.
no
Any
longer.
memories of anything like this?
No, we haven't. I'm presuming that this has been run through legal and this kind of thing is appropriate.
Correct.
TIF.
Correct. We
Even
also-
though it seems like it's potential blight, if you want to call it that, not current blight, or whatever the word was.
Yep, that's talked about, excuse me, a little bit within the project plan is this is to help with reducing the chance that this may have a blighting effect on the community.
Okay, no, as long as it's legal, I think it's fine. It's,
We also used our TID
invented.
consultant to help with the language and everything to make sure we met all the statutory requirements.
So, sorry. So you mean preventing further blight in other businesses?
Correct. Basically, to help try to prevent closure of businesses. So TID 16, and I probably should have explained this a little better, is our downtown Main Street TID area. That TID already has language in it for being able to give grants out, and give grants out with both within the TID and to with businesses within a half-mile radius. That TID captures a lot of business potential of people that may need some help during COVID-19. So by moving this money from 14 to 16, we're trying to reach more businesses.
I just wanted to highlight
Go ahead.
that City Attorney Lawrenson did include the attorney letter to say, yes, the TIF plans do meet the statutory requirements for a TIF amendment.
Thank you. Other discussion? Hey, unique times call for unique measures apparently, so call a roll, let's vote.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Hintz?
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri?
Aye.
Perry?
Aye.
Prop?
Aye.
Fortick?
Aye.
Carried 7-0.
On to item number 4, it's also a public hearing, amendment number 1 to tax increment district number 19, Northwest Industrial Park. I suppose site inspections don't really matter for something like this exactly. We accept the staff report as part of the record, on to you.
So similar to last request, with one additional element to it. So again, we're proposing to move $250,000 of the cash balance from TID 19 into TID 16 to help with the revolving loan fund grant program. We're also asking for a TID amendment in this case to add the half-mile buffer around TID 19 so that both cash revolving loan fund grants could be given in TID 19 to businesses located within 19 and within a half mile, plus move 250,000 to 16 for the same thing. Again, trying to capture as many businesses as we can that may need help.
All right, technical questions, Mayor Parmelee.
Yeah, some of that half-mile buffer overlaps with our TID, our Sawdust District boundaries. So does that kind of make those properties double eligible, or?
So right now, the current proposals would be only for businesses that, well, let me back up. There's a number of other funding sources that are going into this. So if the money would come from, say, for example, the TID portion of it, we're going to basically, when a business applies for money, we're going to take a look at it, and by us, GoEDC is going to be administering this revolving loan fund program. They're going to really look to see, okay, where is that business? What are its qualifications? What is the best pool of money to use for this business? Maybe TID, maybe some of the other funding sources we have available. So the half mile just kind of gets us a broader area that we can capture some, that maybe there's a business that within that half mile radius of TID 19, TID is the best option for that business. Does that clarify it?
Yes, thanks.
Other technical questions? Okay. Anyone here from the public to speak to this item? Doesn't look like it. Do we have a motion to adopt the findings and recommendation?
So move.
There you go. Is there a second?
Second.
And it's been seconded. All right, discussion on the motion. Doesn't look like it. Call the roll, Mr. Mark.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Hintz?
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri?
Aye.
Perry?
Aye.
Prop?
Aye.
Fortek?
Aye.
7-0.
On to item number 5. This could be called Residential Design Standards Variance Week. Number 5, Residential Design Standards Variance to allow window closures on the front facade, excuse me, at 603 CP Avenue. Do we have any site inspections?
At this time.
We do. We accept the staff report as part of the record. On to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this item has come before Plan Commission before. At the March 17th meeting, staff asked for it to be withdrawn. So it was withdrawn, and we're putting it on the agenda for today. So here's the subject site, essentially. You can kind of see it here. It's on the east side of town. There is a lot of single-family, some two-family residential in the immediate vicinity. Going through here. Pretty similar scale in terms of the architecture, but varying character. So we'll get into that. Again, aerial of the subject site here. So basically, the applicant is requesting a design standards variance for work that was already done. We've had a few of these come before Plan Commission, as you know. What they did was and I'll show you in a minute, but the front facade of the property, they closed off the side lights and the transom that used to be around the front door, and they replaced the front door itself too. And so staff was in touch with the applicant. I can't remember if they received a violation notice, but staff became aware of this work being done without a permit and not in conformance with the code, and so now they're here and asking for a variance. Code references that we've had before that I put up, the one that basically prohibits closing of window and door openings on front facades, and then the one prohibiting patchwork use of materials. So you'll see. Here is some of the surrounding properties. Just tried to show these to kind of give you a sense of what is around the subject property. Residential land uses, and you can kind of see their different character. This is the subject property here. So here is a previous image. And you can see the side lights here. Pretty narrow, but nonetheless, that's window area there. and then the transom up above the door. So what they did was they closed that off, and they put in this white double ply here, or double four siding, and then this door with the brick molding around it. So they eliminated the window area, and they put this in. We as staff looked at this, and we believe that, or we're of the opinion that this is patchwork use of materials, and it has had a detrimental impact on the front facade. They, the applicant's been in touch with us, and they have gone back and forth with us on a couple of potential options for repairing or redoing this. One of the options was to replace this white siding here, because that stands out pretty visually, or pretty prominently, with siding that matches the stone on the front of the house. And, or also replacing the door with something that has some kind of window area more along the lines of what you see in the neighborhood or what was previously there. The other option might have been to just replace the door and put in some MDF that's darker in appearance instead of this white lap siding there. The applicant has not followed up. We have not heard back. I think one of the things that they were going to look at was getting some identical matching siding that they could replace that white siding with. They have not followed up on whether they were able to get some of that or obtain that siding. So we are recommending denial at this point, based on the fact that we felt that this work has had a detrimental impact on the architectural integrity, and they have not established justification for the variance request.
Thank you. Technical questions for Stephen. Go ahead, John.
When we talked with the applicant, did they give any inkling at all that there are future improvements planned for this property? I mean, because just looking at the property itself, it's like you have this bright new door that is on this not very well maintained home.
So our,
You know, and are they trying, I mean, is this part
so
of?
our understanding, it was a tenant of the property that did the work without permits or anything. You know, as Stephen talked about, you know, we really have two concerns with what was done. The first was adding that white element that is patchwork material. It's not consistent with the rest of the home. And the second is really the door itself. We went up and down the street, looked at all the homes. All the houses have a glazing or glass element to their doors that are decorative in nature. And this is a stark contrast to that differs greatly from the character of the original home and the neighborhood in general, which is why we really couldn't support it. Excuse me. You know, we delayed this a month to try to give the try to give the applicant more time to work with us, and ultimately we just couldn't get a response out of him. Felt it was most appropriate at this time to then move forward with denial.
Okay, and I guess with that said, we've gone round and round with people asking for permit or for forgiveness instead of permission. This might be our chance to actually put our foot down on one of them where they've not really followed the intent, because that doorway just, like you guys said, it looks nothing like anything that should be there.
Yeah.
If I could just ask a question about the email that came in. So, the petitioner.
The other email we had would be for item number 7.
Okay, so the 421.
The one from
Carlsberg.
Lucy.
Okay, that isn't
That's number
relation.
7.
Okay, all right. So I was attributing that to this, and I was confused because I thought that because it looks like there's old shake and brick, and when I drove by, I couldn't quite tell. I didn't go up to the property, of course, whether or not that stone or brick it's more of a faux siding,
It's
right?
that older like asphalt
Yes.
siding that kind of looked a little like stone.
I mean, I understand that we've had items come where the work has been done after the fact, and if the tenant was, taking the initiative to make some, repairs or improvements, based on, I assume, damage or maybe energy loss or something like that, it kind of puts the owner in a bit of a predicament. But I guess the question is, have we ever, with the residential design standards, like, a full closure door like that or window, allowed for those faux, like, window panels to be placed as a kind of an after the fact to,
I don't know if I can't think of a specific a residential application where we've done it. I think it would be a reasonable request. We've done a lot in commercial with
Sure.
fake windows. Similar to here, I think that could be a very viable option.
so that they didn't have to completely redo all the work. Same thing with even that white lapping.
Yeah, we were just looking for, when we were trying to work through elements with this petitioners, a way to just, if we could blend that stark white area in a little better. We looked at a number of different materials, and the applicant didn't like any of them, didn't want to have to spend the money to invest in them. One of our housing inspectors actually found a material, was it at Menards, Stephen? Lowe's, Menards? That sold a product that would have potentially looked similar, the best we could have done. The applicant didn't want to go through that cost of having to do the work. So that's ultimately, we tried our best to get a workable solution with this applicant, and just that wasn't willing to put any investment into coming to a common ground.
Go ahead, Kath.
Well, so if we vote to deny this and the council votes to deny it, then what? He's cited for,
The Plan Commission has final say.
oh, okay, so
Do not
then
go to
then the
council.
owner will be cited
Then the owner we would go through the violation process against the owner.
for the violation, so that'll get his attention, and it could potentially come back.
Correct. It could come back. I'm more than happy to put this back on the agenda if the applicant comes back, wants to work on a solution.
Okay, thank you.
Any other technical questions? Seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Doesn't look like it. Back to the commission. I have one comment to make, and that is, for all you viewers out there, if you're thinking about doing something with your home, just call the city first. Steven's a perfectly nice man. He'll work with you. And I think we do a lot better when people just engage somehow. It just works better. That's my comment for the public. Other thoughts?
Need a motion?
Yes, we do. No, actually, we did that already. Oh, yeah, we do.
We do.
A motion to
I'm
adopt
sorry.
the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second.
All right, there. Any further discussion? No. And then Michael.
I just want to say, and staff knows this since this came out, I tend to be on the side of the property owners. I'm very libertarian that way. I think people's property is their thing, but again, like you say, you don't know something that doesn't fit until you see it. And when you look at the picture of this doorway, this is exactly what we're trying not to have happen as far as when this ordinance was created. So this is like the perfect, again, like I said, it's the perfect opportunity for us to say, this isn't what we want, fix it, or we're gonna, do the procedure with the finding and whatnot. But hopefully we'll see them back here in a month, and they'll be like, hey, we want to work with you guys, and this will wake the owner up. So I will be voting against this.
Go ahead, Kath.
Point of order, where the motion is a positive one to adopt, and so we vote no, or is the motion a negative one?
So the recommendation is for denial.
If we say yes, we're denying.
So if we say yes, we're denying. All right, thank
We
you.
always motion in the
The
positive.
positive.
Right.
Go ahead, Michael.
Wait, time out. No, the motion, what Mr. Hint said is correct. We always motion in the affirmative, so a no means you want to deny it, a yes means you want to approve it.
That's what I thought.
Oh, okay.
You are correct, thank you.
Okay, that's true, even though we adopted the recommendations? Okay,
Yes.
all right.
That's, we've always, it's confusing.
Yeah, no worries. Well, I agree with John. There's very specific criteria that allow us to grant a variance. And if you look at the application that was submitted, there's 3 questions there. Only one was answered, and it was answered with 1 sentence. So we really don't have the materials we need to be able to consider this.
Thank you. Other discussion? See none, let's call the roll.
Just
Eric.
repeat one more, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Just
A no-
repeat one more time.
A no would be to deny the variance. A yes would be to approve the work as you've seen.
I'm sorry, but what was the motion?
So we always motion in the affirmative, so the motion would be to approve.
But what's the full saying?
Motion to adopt the findings and
Findings and
recommendations
recommendations
as stated in the
And
staff.
I think
In the
if
staff
this-
report.
That's somewhat
Yeah.
different.
we don't recommend denial often enough, it messes us. I would ask for a motion if your motion, who made the motion?
I did.
Ford, is your motion to deny? Or please make a motion to approve.
But here's the thing, I think you have to do the full
Yes.
statement here, because
Yes.
if you're voting to adopt the findings and recommendations of council, or I'm not council,
the
but of the
staff report, which
staff
is
report,
denial.
which is to deny.
Maybe we'll just have Mr. Ford clarify his motion.
My intent is to deny this variance,
So the motion is to deny.
And that's fine. If we want to do it that way, we can. Motion is to deny. A yes means deny. A no means to approve. Yes to deny. No to approve.
I don't think that's how we typically do it, but I think.
No, it's not. And so I'm sorry, that is
It's
on
because
staff.
I'm guessing it's because they changed the wording, because if we're adopting the findings and recommendations, your findings and recommendations
Yeah.
are to say no.
Correct. I think this is the first no we've recommended since we changed that language.
And I get the weird logic that it actually takes to reprimand that.
I think we need an opinion on that for future meetings.
Yep.
Yeah, that's on me. I need to do a better job when we deny things to spell out better.
All right, so let's call the roll one more.
Yes is to say no.
A yes is to deny.
All right. Call it.
Erickson,
Yes.
Ford,
Aye.
Hintz,
Aye.
Mayor Paul Mary,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
Prop,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion is denied 7-0. Or motion carries 7-0 to deny.
Confusion there.
We'd
Moving
just like
on.
to approve
Easy,
things.
it's easy to do that,
Yeah.
believe me.
Moving on to another similar thing, residential design standards variance to allow window and door areas comprising less than the code minimums for front and street side facades on a proposed house at 1302 Eastman Street. And have we had a site inspection area there? All right. We accept the staff report as part of the record. On to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this item is for a corner residential lot currently vacant on Eastman. It's at the corner of Eastman and Tennessee. So you can see it here. Single-family property. I think a lot of these are zoned 2-10 residential or TR10. So zoning that can allow single or two-family. If you look at the immediate, on the east, north, and south, that's what those properties are zoned. I believe it's a mixture of single and two-family land uses there. And then there's some multifamily across Eastman, just to the west. And again, there's kind of similar scale properties here, but we'll focus on this one here, on this corner lot here. So this property used to have a house on it. That structure was demolished, and the redevelopment authority took over the lot, to my understanding. Habitat for Humanity Oshkosh now has plans to redevelop this site. So they're proposing a new build, a new single-family house on the site. I'll show you it, the proposed elevations and site plan in a second here. We as staff had some discussions back and forth with the applicant, and they sent us their elevations, their site plan, their floor plans. We reviewed them to determine whether or not they met code. We found out that the biggest issue was the deficient window and door areas for the street-facing facades. So in this case, you have the front facade, which is the short end, or the short dimension on Eastman. That's what code prescribes as the front facade. And then the street side facade on Tennessee Avenue, right there. So our code references here are these. Basically prescribing a minimum for front facade. So the Eastman facade in this case would have to have a minimum of 25% of its wall space for window or door openings. And then the other section looks at the street side facade, so the long facade along Tennessee, and that states a minimum of 15% of the wall space for window or door openings. Here's the site plan. You can see, I believe this is the existing detached garage, which would stay, and then the rest of the lot is currently vacant. They're gonna put up a single-family house on the lot. And then a new driveway, I believe, or actually, I don't know if it says existing actually, but the main thing is the new house on the lot. They meet the setbacks, so we don't have any issues there. Just a matter of window and door area. You can see the elevation proposed for Eastman. This went through a number of iterations, but here's the latest one. Proposed window and door area is just short of the 25%. Technically, it is short of the code, so we do have to run it through Plan Commission for a review. They originally only had, I think, half of the window area on each side, so they just had one window on each side of the door. They've added it and doubled the area on either side of the proposed door at the front there. They also are adding decorative shutters, which is consistent with some of the surrounding properties. And then they're adding decorative trim and shake siding up at the gable end here, along with a decorative vent. So they are making efforts to break up the front facade, and that's the intent of those code sections. The idea of having a little bit of, breaking up the monotony and adding window and door area to try to eliminate large expanses of siding and monotony. So that was the Eastman facade. The Tennessee facade, if you look at it, here they are proposing decorative shutters, and then they did add some window. I think this is a bedroom here. So they are trying to make it work with the floor plan. If they were to add more window area, that could have ramifications on the proposed floor plan. And they are trying to put a lot of program into this house. I think they have like 5 bedrooms proposed. So it is quite a bit of program in that house. This one was even closer to the code minimum, just short of the 15%, but technically it is short, so we do have to run it through. Kind of hard to see here, but this is that multifamily property just to the west, so some of the surrounding context here. This property is just to the south of the subject property across Tennessee. And then this is the property kitty corner from the subject property. One of the property owners did call me and ask about the proposed work. And when I explained it, she was supportive of Habitat's efforts to break up the facades, to put in decorative shutters, doing different siding materials on the front facade. But just wanted to let you know that somebody did weigh in and ask about this. So we as staff looked at this. We looked at what they're proposing, and the work does not meet the letter of the law, so to speak, but it does meet the intent, in our opinion. It is breaking up the monotony that could result otherwise. They are going to be deficient in window area, but at the same time, I think what they're proposing more than compensates for that. So we as staff recommend approval of this variance request with these conditions. That they're going to stick to the elevations and plans submitted. If they were to deviate, then they would have to come back to Plan Commission for further review and approval. The variance would be narrow in scope and only apply for the window and door percentages. Everything else would have to meet design standards. And then lastly, the last condition is that the home would comply with all other sections in the residential design standards. Our finding was that this as conditioned, if it is approved, it will not be contrary to the public interest. And it does meet the intent of the standards.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Tactical questions for Stephen. Go ahead, John, first, and then Kathy.
Is this a single-story home, and is that an attic space that's going to be upstairs? Because I noticed that without the windows up there and just the vent.
Yes, it has a basement and then just one floor, I believe.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't know if Darlene, if you know, I'm not sure if there's an attic that is accessible or not.
Oh, I
think it's.
but the reason I'm asking is that there's no bedrooms upstairs.
No, there will not be.
So they're actually working with us. They're not actually technically putting a window up there, but they're putting a rather large vent.
Yes.
Which is helping to break up, which is also, like you're saying, with the intent,
Yep.
correct?
And by code, they would be able to have them anyway up there without
Right.
egress, fire egress
Right.
purposes or windows and such. So, but yes, that's correct. They are trying to put that vent in there, as you saw.
Okay, on to Kathy, and then Michael, and then Mayor Palmieri.
When I looked at the site, I was struck by the large garage, which you say is going to stay. And it looks coming on almost as big as the house in a way. I mean, it just seemed very large. And it's offset in a weird way, if that's the way it's actually, is it actually angled a little bit from the house, the way the drawing shows?
These plans can be off, give or take a little bit. We try to be accurate, but it's tough to tell, short of having a survey done.
That angle.
These can.
And if it is angled, is that a problem?
It is not.
Nope.
Okay, all right. That's all I needed.
Michael?
Yes, would the variance lock in the percentages they have on there? I want to make sure there's not a future iteration where they go far below.
It would lock in that requirement. I mean, if you know, I'll make some comments when we're done.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor.
On the percentages, I guess my question is, technically speaking, with it being a 1.4%, 1.42% on the door variation and a 0.16 on the window, does staff have any kind of margin to work with, in terms of, whether or not it needs to come to plan
So
commission?
right now, we do not. And great segue, thank you. One of the things staff is currently working on is modifications, potential modifications to this section of the code. This is a very prescriptive black and white section of the code, 25%. There's no options. You meet 25% or you don't. Some of the builders we've been talking to in the area have expressed concerns with that. You can have a well-designed, well-appealing home that doesn't meet 25%. I think this case in point, front facade of this home is well-designed. It has some character, varying materials. So staff's actually been working on a point-based system that could potentially replace this. So window and door openings could get you X number of points. Adding the shutters will get you some points. Varying the materials gets you some points. Nice. Adding that decorative vent gets you some points. And we've had a lot of really positive feedback from the building community at looking at a system that gives greater flexibility. And that's really what the intent of what we've been working on, is a system that is not quite as prescriptive, gives some flexibility for good design. Okay. We're hoping here in 2020 to roll that out to Plan Commission and Council. We wanted to work with builders, start to get a decent grasp on what we may propose before we bring it forward. But I would expect that sometime this summer we'll bring you a proposal and start to get some feedback on it.
Yeah, I was just curious because it seemed like, there should be some kind of like common sensibility to, within a narrow interpretation, but more flexibility, and that's why I asked.
Yep.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, and staff sees that issue with
Thanks
the
for
current
being
code.
responsive. Good. Other technical questions? All right, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Look like it. Close public hearing. Do we have a motion to adopt the findings and recommendation?
Motion to adopt findings and recommendations as recommended by staff.
Second.
Second.
All right, discussion on this. John.
I just want to really quick applaud city staff for looking ahead on this, because that's great that you guys are going to give us some leeway with people, because we don't want to sit and hold everybody's feet right to the fire when they come in here either and be seen as the bad guys. And planning commissions tend to be looked at as the bad guys. That's
Not here. Not Oshkosh. That's those others.
We try, but it's great that you're looking ahead, and we're going to see that in the future. So thanks, guys and gals.
I think it especially given the variation throughout the city. I know that the spirit of the residential design standards was to bring things up a level, but not to prevent people from trying to make improvements.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Anything else? All right, call the roll there, Amina.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Ince?
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri?
Aye.
Perry?
Present.
Prop?
Aye.
Wojtek?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
All right, in keeping with the theme then, on item number 7, residential design standards variance to allow a proposed addition on the front facade of the original house at 330 Shoreline Street. Any site inspections for this one today? Okay, we got a couple. We do accept the staff report as part of the record. On to you, Stephen.
Thank you. So another design standard variance request here. This one is for this property, another corner property. But this time it's over on Shore Lane and Babbitt's, so right at the corner there. Right on the lake, so it's SR5 Lakefront Residential Overlay as far as zoning. And then a lot of the properties are either SR9, kind of in the vicinity. Actually, this is SR9 LRO, sorry about that. I think I said that wrong, but anyway, SR9 LRO. So a little bit more dense residential, older area of town, so. Again, but a corner site here that we're looking at. Here's the aerial of it. A lot of the properties around it are single-family residential, I believe. Immediate properties are all single-family right around it, and then obviously lakefront over here. So this property, just note that this one is set back a good amount further than the one immediately to the south, which is technically an outlier for our purposes, or any of these a few down. Like if you can see, like there's this prevailing sort of line here or setback that's in place, that these were built, I think what, maybe 36 feet or so off of the front property line. This one, just to the south of our subject site, is about 51 feet, if I remember correctly. And then our subject property, I think, is like 67 feet, so set back a good amount further than the other adjoining properties. So the applicant is looking at making several changes to this property. The major change they want to make is putting a garage addition on the front facade. The code reference here we're going to look at is additions to a principal structure and changes that extend the footprint shall be placed on a rear facade or side facade if rear is not practical. And that's to have a minimal impact on the overall scale and character of the original house. So here's the subject house here, subject site. The garage currently faces shore lane. And so they are looking at putting an addition on, and they want to reorient this driveway to have it come off of Babbitt's. And I'll show in a second. Here's our site plan that they did, or they submitted. So here, if you can imagine north being up, Babbitt's is up here. Shore lane is down over here, actually, on the west. And then they're proposing this garage addition here. I think they just want more storage for their vehicles, is what they told us. And then their driveway access would shift, just primarily for storage. They also do want to enhance the aesthetics of the house. Another small thing they're going to be doing is adding or enlarging this existing front entry here. And you'll see that in their elevations that they submitted to us. Here are their elevations. So this is how it would look as proposed. So with that new addition, you can imagine that garage door would have been there. That would move. They put this addition on. That's another space or two onto the existing garage. Currently the house, there's a lot of brick, and then they had lap siding for the rest of it. They're proposing to remove all of the lap siding and put on the cedar shake siding. And then that would be more in conformance with what the house was originally, historically, they said. Their elevations, just want to note that they show some brick on the edge of the garage addition. That has become a point between them and staff, and I'll bring that to your attention because they are showing brick here in the elevations. What they want to do actually is to just run cedar shake all the way down and eliminate this brick on the end of the garage here. So that's going to be something where we're going to seek input from this body as far as whether we want to allow them to deviate from what they've submitted or hold them to this. And that's the subject of their email, which I'll get to in a minute. And then you can see, so that's their elevation looking from shore lane. This is just cutting through that garage addition and then showing a little bit better that enlarged entry. The existing window areas are maintained on this brick mass of the house here, kind of in the background a little bit. And then this is looking from Babbitt's here. So you can see their existing garage and then their addition here. That brick that I was talking about is right there on the west facade there. And then there's that enlarged entry right there in the corner with cedar shake siding, as you can see here. So we went back and forth with them, just making sure I hit on all of this here. The house's placement on the property creates a rather large front yard. As I mentioned, it's set back a good amount from the front property line. So that kind of restricts where they can put in a potential addition in the rear. So I can see why they're looking to enlarge the garage, and they're kind of tied down to putting it on the front facade. If they do the work in a way as conditioned, we don't think that it'll have a detrimental impact on the architectural integrity. But there were a few issues that we had. One big thing was material samples. We as staff wanted to see those, especially given the fact that we've had a number of cases that come through where people have said that they're gonna match the materials, but then they don't. In this case, I think their mason did some work recently on the brick portion of their house where I think the mason did some work underneath their windowsills. From what I could see they were relatively low resolution photographs, they matched the brick pretty effectively, but we still want to see physical samples that we can compare next to the original. So we as staff are recommending approval of this, but we have a few conditions here. We've talked to Public Works. Their big thing is the driveway reorientation would be possible, but they are going to require garbage pickup to occur off of Shore Lane still. So that's just something that I noted for the applicant. And then we've discussed removing the front carriage walk that goes out from the house to Shore Lane as part of this. Public Works also wanted, I think, more detailed site plans showing the dimension between the corner, or the intersection, I should say, and where this driveway access will be. So that is a condition. We want an updated site plan to be submitted to staff for review. So that's the first condition. Any deviation from the plans and elevations submitted would require revised plans and elevations to be submitted to us at a minimum. We want to make sure we hold them to what they submit to us as far as what they're building. All portions of the house currently sided with lap siding shall be completely resided with cedar shake, so we don't have patchwork appearance or patchwork use of materials. The variance being for the garage only, only the addition as proposed, and any further work not in accordance with the standards would be submitted to staff for potential plan condition review. So again, narrow in scope. Any brick used for any work shall match the brick on the house. We are putting right now that the applicant shall install brick on the west facade of the garage, which I called out to you. If anyone wants to propose changing that condition, we can have that discussion here. But that's what we recommended for our original conditions, and holding them to the original elevations. Providing physical samples of the brick before any permit shall be issued, so we can look at the samples and make sure that they're in accordance with what's on the house. Removing the carriage walk in the front yard would be the last condition. And then just before I finish, I wanted to note that they did email us, and just wanted to note that they mentioned that brick on the west facade of the house on that garage addition. They notified us that they no longer want to do the brick and that they just want to do cedar shake. So I just wanted to put that in the record. This came in, I think, yesterday. And I believe that is it. The finding that we had was that the variance as conditioned will not be contrary to the public interest.
Thank you. Technical questions. Let's start with the mayor and then to Kathy and then to John.
So 2 questions. First of all, as I read that email, there's some conflicting statements in there. It says that last week when we were discussing the brick, we notify you we no longer want to do the brick. It would be covered by landscaping, and we prefer the seamless look of all cedar shake. But then they go on to say, when the house was built in 1936, it was all cedar shake and brick, and we want to return to that. So it's a little bit confusing, number one, and the elevations in comparison to the site plan, there's like on the site plan, it looks like a 45-degree angle for the garage addition, but on the elevations, it looked like more of a 90.
Yeah, and that's why one of the items we addressed is just getting that up-to-date site plan from them.
Okay.
To make sure, okay, does it have that little bit of a turn to it? Is it straightly
Or is it
perpendicular?
a full
Exactly.
flip around? And
Yep.
then, yeah, so I guess I'm confused.
Yeah. And the brick is something that staff asked if Stephen could come out to their property and take pictures of the area where they had brickwork done in the past to get a sense for how well their mason is matched in the past, so we could understand if it made sense. For reasons that they decided they did not want Stephen to come out to the property, and decided they no longer wanted to do the brick, period. When staff looks at this elevation without the brick, we're extending closer to the front yard, which is why we're here today.
Right.
We really feel it makes sense as your front plane extends further out, that we have that consistent look with the rest of the house, and that we have something that breaks up that plane of that front wall. If that brick is removed, we have a relatively monotonous front-looking plane that's now been pushed closer to the street. Yes, there are some windows in it, but we really feel that the brick they originally proposed makes the most sense here, and we'd like to see them held to that, because it does break up that front facade that's now even closer to the street than it previously was. We leave it to Plan Commission to decide ultimately if they think it's appropriate to include that brick or not.
Kathy?
I guess I'm getting into opinion here instead of technical questions, but I don't see what the problem is if they want cedar shake, and that's the way the house was in the beginning. I don't know why we have to force them, I guess, to have brick. Your point about breaking up the facade, I understand that. That could happen with landscaping, could it not? Along the, if you take the brick off the new garage and put cedar shake on and add some shrubs, that might do it. But I don't see why we're talking about forcing them to do brick if they don't want to.
John?
Mayor got my point, or my question, so.
Other technical questions? Okay, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? Doesn't look like it. All right, do we have a motion to adopt the findings and recommendations stated in the staff report?
So moved.
Ready to do it? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Lindsay got a second. All right, discussion.
Just discussed. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Anything else
Got
to add?
heard.
Just a quick question for staff. If they, because they say in here that they don't want to do the brick, and if they change from that, are we going to end up seeing it again?
I don't think you have to if you're, if you approve it, if we want to amend the conditions. We as staff would still want them to submit updated elevations and hold them to that. The other question might be, like, if we're gonna require landscaping, do we want a certain number of points? It's just harder, right, Mark? It's harder for us to say, like, oh, just install
Yeah,
landscaping.
I mean, it's really, it's at Plan Commission's discretion.
Yep.
Our recommendation is the brick to be included. If you would prefer not to see the brick, you could amend that condition or remove it completely. As Stephen alluded to, if you feel you'd rather have landscaping in lieu of the brick and you wanted to add a landscaping requirement, we would ask that you put a point total on it so we have something to hold them to. It's not just an arbitrary add landscaping. I have a little bit of concern with landscaping in this situation, just as we do live in Wisconsin, and landscaping is great for 5-6 months of the year. Depending on what type of landscaping you put in, it can largely be gone for 6 months of the year and you have that plane. I wouldn't necessarily want to recommend quite that far, saying you have to put in 100 points of landscaping. It has to be evergreen. It's an option. I think it's getting a little prescriptive, but this board could choose to do even that far.
Go ahead, Tom.
So a couple of things said during this report and presentation has set off a little alarm bells in my head. And so I feel that I need to say them. By the homeowner not allowing Stephen to come and take pictures of the masonry repair work, that's a little alarming. You should be proud of your home. You should want to show that out. And then all of a sudden not wanting to do the brick when those questions were brought up, it leads me to believe that we're hoping for a little wiggle room or something in our design or in our plans from what's originally been presented, and we've been burned by that many times in the past. So I have those concerns that, like I said, the bell going off in my head, that it seems for somebody who wants to do something like this that needs this board's approval, the cooperation and the sudden changes make me leery of whether or not we're getting the full story.
Other thoughts? Go ahead, John.
I just wanted to add that if we're passing this as it's written, we're saying that what they've presented to us is what we would like to see. So it would end up having to come back to us if they did change, if they did alter that, correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Because no permits have been granted.
So would it be appropriate then to lay this over to see if that can be worked out before a vote is taken instead of bringing it back to us twice?
Well, I mean, the applicant has twice now iterated that they don't want the brick. in a conversation with Stephen last week, and then again in the email, staff's opinions, we would rather see the brick. If you'd like us to lay it over to voice our concerns with the applicant and see if they're willing to reconsider it, we can.
It just seems like it's not clear in the email. They're saying two different things.
And I know with them, like, to be honest, they've been, like, it has been a long process, and I think it seems like they've had issues with just the delay in their eyes, and, you know, not trying to speak entirely for them, but my impression was that they want to get moving on this, and so that's part of it.
Yeah, this is a situation where, like, if we had had 2 meetings, these individuals would have been placed in the first April meeting. With, you know, current COVID situations, obviously we have the 1 meeting this month, and it did delay their project.
Okay.
Go ahead, Michael, and then Tom.
And why don't we, can I propose to amend the conditions to allow full cedar?
Just need a second if the.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on that?
I would accept that as a friendly.
Yeah.
I meant
We'll
to
vote
meet-
on that.
Tom has
first.
something to
We'll
say.
vote.
I'll also make it very clear, I'm not as concerned about cedar versus brick or anything like that. I'm just concerned about what appears to be these alarm bells that are going off, and I'm very concerned that some of those cedar shakes may be spray painted white. We'll just leave it at that.
So just for clarification, the motion would be to amend condition number 5 and remove the second sentence from that condition.
Correct.
And that's,
That's for me.
What, are we,
you need to vote on that, or are we?
Well,
We should.
yeah.
we should vote on it, it's a
Yeah.
formal amendment.
Yeah, it's been moved, seconded to
Amend.
amend item number 5 or condition number 5 and take out the
Well,
second.
if I accept it as a friendly, can we vote on the whole thing with that amended? And if that gets shot down, then we will come back and vote on the whole thing?
Yes, I think, yeah.
So I accept it as a friendly, and who is my second?
Second.
Lori, I put both. All right, any other discussion? Then if we vote to approve this
It would,
As amended.
as
as
amended.
amended.
Um,
Go ahead.
I want to bring up the landscaping thing again, and I'm sorry, I'm not capable of telling you how many points. A certain amount of landscaping, and I would rather be flexible on what they would like to put in.
Could it be
I
negotiated
mean,
with staff?
You can
or-
have a few sticks, you know, our yard, you know, has some dogwoods and things, you know, branches are sticking up even though it's winter and there's something there to break it up. So if it is all cedar shake, I would like to have some landscaping, and I don't know what the right wording is.
Are we,
Staff discretion, I guess.
so are you proposing to amend the condition to add some landscaping?
Yes.
John, do you accept that?
I do.
So,
Then it's 2 things we're
Ms.
missing.
Erickson, yes. You do not want to put a point total on it, you just want staff to require some landscaping.
I'm not capable of doing that right here.
Working, worded that they would work with staff on landscaping on
Yeah.
whatever street side that is. Can't
Usually
remember offhand.
on the
but-
shoreline.
Yeah.
I can write up some length for it.
All right.
You get-
Okay, anything else before we confuse this even more? Okay, then let's call the roll. Marcus?
We're voting on the entire thing as amended.
as
As amended with landscaping instead of the brick.
Okay.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Hintz,
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri,
Aye.
Perry,
Aye.
Prop,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
On to item number 8, yet another one. Residential design standards variance to allow a door closure on the front facade at 16 Viola Avenue. Oh, was there site inspections for that one? All right, and then we do accept the staff report as part of the record. Sorry to delay you, Stephen, go ahead.
Thanks. So this one, another design standard variance here. So here's the subject site on Viola. a single-family property, has an existing house and detached garage on the property. Oak Lawn Elementary is immediately to the west, so you can see that big institutional parcel there. There looks to be a two-family property here, and then some single-family properties on the north, and then the other properties to the east. Single-family to the south also, with some multifamily just further beyond that. So here's an aerial of the subject site. You can see it. They're going to be maintaining the house, as we'll see. So this code reference here, 30-241B3, we see it a lot. You know, we saw it on an earlier variance request today. Existing door openings on front facade shall not be closed or filled. I mean, actually, that was windows before, but similar intent. Maintaining windows and door openings on front facades. So what they've got here, they submitted a good amount of information, so that helped us out a lot. This is the existing front facade of the house. And so they've got the front entry door here, windows on either side. Their variance request is actually for the closure of this door. That's all it's for, is just for that door closure. But they're gonna be doing a lot of work on this property to enhance the property. It definitely can use some work, some investment, and they realize that and they've stated that. So their intent is to go from this to the facade proposed down here. So they would remove the door, maintain this door that's further back on the bump out further back on the side of the house there, visible from the street, but then they'd greatly enlarge the window areas. They would be re-siding the whole house. They actually would put a patio door on the side facade. You can see it, this facade here. So this patio door would be put in. They'd put a new deck in that complies with the design standards. They're also going to be, I think, raising the detached garage and putting up a new detached garage. And then doing some work with the rafters at the rear. So redoing some of the roof angles and redoing the shingles. So they're doing a good amount of work on this house. I just want to get into the door and window changes on the front facade. So by removing the door, but enlarging the windows, I think their percentage of facade area is going from about 19.5% of the facade area for windows and doors going to 25%. So technically going from non-conforming to conforming with the code. So that's a plus. Just want to show you here. Again, you know, looking at these elevations, but here's the floor plan. So they have this to work with. And then you can see these proposed window enlargement or enlarged windows there. And then the patio door here on the east facade. This is one of the neighboring properties. So we like to look around, as we mentioned on other design standard requests. We look at some of the context, some of the neighboring properties to see what those look like. This one here is across the street, so just to the south, I believe. You can see that there is no door on this front facade. They have a similar arrangement where they have the door on the side, and then they have window area on the front. They have steps leading up. So when we look at these, we try to make sure that it's not completely out of character with the neighborhood. In this case, there is that example of an adjacent property that has such an arrangement that they're proposing.
Is that a corner?
I don't believe so. I think if we go back, I just want to confirm. No, it's just, I believe it's just this one here.
Yep, number 17.
Yep. But just across the way there. So it's an infill lot there. Here's just wanted to give you a sense, and the garage isn't part of the variance request necessarily, but it is an enhancement. If they're removing a dilapidated garage and they're putting up a new detached garage, that would comply with the setbacks and all that for the property. Again, just images showing that. Just wanted to give you a sense of what they're proposing beyond the house. Just a plan for it. So we as staff were supportive of this. We looked at, again, the intent of the ordinance, trying to prevent monotonous facades, which in their case, I think that they're enhancing the facades. So they're definitely preventing the monotony that would result if they closed off the door by itself and didn't do anything. We looked at surrounding context, surrounding houses, and then the information provided by the applicant. They provided a lot of good, helpful information on the existing windows and door sizes, and then on what they're going to be going to. They got us all of that, so that made our lives easier as far as trying to calculate percentages and such, rather than estimating. So we recommend approval, and we have these conditions here. So again, kind of narrow in scope for the variance, but it's only for the closure of the front door. Any other work not in conformance with the standards would have to come back as separate requests. Other work on the property, but not limited to, including but not limited to siding, roofing, the deck, et cetera, would have to meet our design standards. So, you know, consistent use of materials. The deck would have to have top and bottom rails, balusters or spindles, no exposed fasteners since it's visible from the street. The siding and roofing materials, yeah, I just mentioned that, being consistent. And then completing the work in accordance with the plans and elevations. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest. I'd asked this applicant if they had any additional input for us today. They did not really. They just said that they're trying to enhance this property, but they want to get going on the work. So I think that's all I have for this one.
All right, thank you. Technical questions?
As Stephen had mentioned, you know, this is a case where an applicant is looking to make significant reinvestment into the property, basically full exterior rehab of the development. So we took a look at their proposed total scope of work and the surrounding area. This was consistent with what was already across the street. That combined with just the overall general improvement of the property in its entirety, felt it was really a supportable request.
Mayor?
Yeah, just a question then. I'm kind of conflicted here because I don't feel good about houses that don't have front doors. But the technical question is, if this was granted, there would still be a requirement for the address numbers to be on the front facade for emergency responders, correct?
Correct, that does not change.
And then the other part of that is with removing a door from the front facade and putting it on the side, would there be, God forbid, difficulties with accessing by first responders that other entrance? Because it looks like there's some stairs, if that's the door that I see in the elevation.
They're basically adding like a porch along that side of the home, which would give them the ability to access that door pretty easily. I don't think it'd be much different than if there were stairs up to the quick landing to get into the home. There'll be stairs up onto the porch and into the home.
Okay, thank you.
Other technical questions? Very interesting little area there. All right, seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? I see nothing. Back to the commission. Motion to adopt the findings and recommendation, et cetera, et cetera.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. I think the mayor got there first. Discussion. Kathy?
This is a big improvement. I'm going to support this.
I would agree.
Yeah, well, it's a big improvement. Like I said, I just have concerns, even though we already have another house across the street that doesn't have a front door. It just, to me, it seems like the variation by removing that front door kind of goes in conflict with some of the other discussions we've had as to application, so I won't be supporting it.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Okay, let us call the roll.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Hintz?
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri?
No.
Harry?
Aye.
Prop?
Aye.
Wojtek?
Aye.
Carries 6-1.
According to what Mark said, item number 9 has been removed from the agenda, correct?
Correct. Number 9 is no longer required action.
All right, then we'll move on to number 10, which is to accept water distribution easement at 3851 Jackson Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any site inspections over there? We do accept the staff report as part of the record. On to you, Jeff.
Thank you. This is a water main easement request located at 3851 Jackson Street. Subject site's up on the screen. The photo is a little outdated. This is a site of the recently constructed Matthews Senior Living. If you've been up there recently, it looks like it's just about complete and ready for residents to move in. Anyways, back in 1993, the city constructed water main on the private property located right off of the Jackson Street right-of-way. At that time, the city did not acquire a water main easement from the property owner. So this request is to rectify that absence of the water main easement. The proposed easement is approximately 16,000 square feet in size, will be 30 feet wide, and it's offset 20 feet west of the Jackson Street right-of-way, centered over the existing water main. There are other structures located within the proposed easement, including a hydrant and several valves. The easement will legally allow the existing placement of the water facilities, continued maintenance of the existing structures, and then construction of new water distribution structures within the easement as needed. The Department of Public Works and the city attorney's office has been working with the property owner. The easement documents have been signed already and are ready to be recorded at the Register of Deeds upon approval by the Common Council. So with that, that's just a close-up view of the existing water main and the proposed easement. This line right here just represents the water surface leading into the property. And that's the easement map drawing that will be recorded. And staff is recommending approval of the water main easement at 3851 Jackson Street as proposed.
Any technical questions for Joe? Seeing none. Anybody from the public to speak to this item today? Don't see anybody there either. Close public comment. And then do we have a motion to adopt the findings and recommendation as stated in the staff report?
So moved.
Second.
Kathy got it that time. All right, discussion? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Hintz?
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri?
Aye.
Perry?
Aye.
Prop?
Aye.
Wojtek?
Aye. On to item 11, it's a specific implementation plan amendment for building addition at 2105 South Keller Street. Do we have any site inspections? All right, we do. We do accept the staff report as part of the record. On to you, Brian.
Thank you. So this is an SIP amendment request. This is for the Mine Shaft Restaurant, for which a SIP was approved in 2019. It's currently under construction. So they're looking. So here's an aerial view of the subject site. It's located on Kohler and with 41 to the west. Property is zoned SMU PD. And here's the site plan. So you can see on the northwest corner of the building, they're proposing an addition. The addition will be for a bakery. It'll be about 1,200 square feet in size. And it'll have internal access only, so no exterior doors. And here is, so here are the elevations. So it will match materials with the existing building. So again, it'll just kind of blend into the existing approved building. Here's the landscape plan. So they are proposing some shrubs to go around the addition, and that will meet the building foundation landscaping point requirements. And as it is additional building floor area, they are required additional yard landscaping points. So they will need to add some more landscaping to meet that requirement, which will be a condition that we're recommending. Here's the color renderings. So here's the addition here, again, matching the existing materials of the building. Again, staff is supportive of the proposed materials to match. And staff recommends approval of the SIP amendment with the condition that 9 additional landscaping points be provided. And one note that I did not mention was they are also proposing to move the previously approved pylon sign. It'll be going here, which is actually a little further off the 41 frontage than originally proposed, but this just making a note on that plan.
On note on the sign, essentially they're just moving it a little closer to their paved drive access for ease of accessing or maintaining the sign. They had it a little closer to property line and realized with the grades and everything, it was going to be difficult to maintain the sign at that location. So they've brought it closer so they can maintain it.
Technical questions from the commission?
Just
ahead.
one, and that is, how recent was, I see this is dated March 13th, And I guess the reason I'm asking that is in relation to the internal access only language that's used there, and that there would be no external doors. I guess in light of recent operations by restaurants and that doing pickup and carry out, was there any follow-up discussion that,
Yeah, it's a-
perhaps that could be beneficial at
Yeah, it's not a
future-
bakery in a sense of you can come there and buy baked goods. It's a bakery in the sense of they wanted additional equipment within their own kitchen for making their own breads and buns. And
Oh, so not retail bakery.
it's not retail, it's for their internal use only, which is why the access is
gotcha.
internal only.
Okay.
It butts up to their kitchen facilities.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Other technical questions? Seeing none, anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? All right. Close public comment. Do we have a motion to adopt the findings and recommendations stated in the staff report?
So moved.
Second.
John got it that time. Discussion. Okay, let's call the roll.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Hintz,
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri,
Aye.
Perry,
Aye.
Pop. Aye. Wojtek.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
All right, on to our final item of business today, number 12, a general development plan amendment and specific implementation plan approval for mixed-use development located at the southwest corner of Jackson Street and Pearl Avenue. Any site inspections?
On our way.
A few times. We accept the staff report as part of the record, and on to you, Brian.
Thank you. So here's the subject site. It's located at the intersection of Pearl Avenue and Jackson Street, and it is zoned UMU PD. Here's an aerial view of the subject site. We have the Aurora site to the south, and then AccuCom to the northwest. So in 2019, a general development plan was approved for 3 sites. So this request is an SIP approval request for Site H only. So here's the site plan. It is for a 5-story, 60 upper floor residential unit mixed-use building. So the ground floor will be for commercial use, it'll be about 9,000 square feet of commercial area. That'll be for a food co-op. It will also include 2 outdoor patios along Jackson Street. So the GDP for this site was for a 2-story mixed-use building with 14 upper floor residential units. So a GDP amendment is required as they're significantly increasing the use as well as the size of the building. So the site will be accessed with 2 shared driveways, one from Pearl and one from Jackson. They are requesting several base standard modifications for this, one of which is for parking. They're proposing 117 parking spaces where a minimum of 150 is required. So they are meeting the number needed for the commercial use, and for residential, they're providing about 1.5 parking stalls per unit. Staff is supportive of that parking reduction as most of the units are either studio or 1 bedroom, and also it's kind of in a downtown setting where less parking is generally required. They're also requesting a BSM for the building height. In the UMU district, the maximum height is 45 feet, and they're proposing a 62-foot height. And again, staff is supportive of that BSM, as with it being a downtown setting, that will be compatible with the surrounding area. They're also requesting a BSM for the location of the dumpster enclosure, as it will be located closer to the street than the building. Staff is supportive of that, as well as there's some site constraints where that's one of the only feasible areas for it. And as you'll see in the landscaping plan, they are providing landscape kind of to buffer it. Multifamily uses require a outdoor recreation space, which they will not be providing, so they need a BSM for that as well. With it being mostly 1 bedroom and studios, it'll be mostly adults living there, so there will be no need for children recreation area. And also with being in a walkable urban area close to the riverfront, they should be able to have recreation without having the designated recreation space on site. They're also requesting several base standard modifications for landscaping. One of which is for the parking row islands. I believe there's 3 of them that do not have overstory trees. And the reason for that they cannot put those in there is there's conflicts due to overhead utilities running through the site, as well as easements. And the larger island here, they're be using for snow storage, so they cannot fit those 3 overstory trees into those islands. Code requires 180 feet maximum or 20 stalls maximum without a intermediate island, and they will not be providing those islands in 3 parking rows. And this is also attributed to the easements and the overhead utilities running through the site that do not allow for the placement of those landscape islands. For street frontage, they're not proposing any street frontage along Jackson Street because there is insufficient space there. They're basically right up to the sidewalk. So they are making up for those points on Jackson Street on the Pearl Ave frontage. So they are actually having the total amount of buffer of street frontage points. They're meeting that requirement. However, they are not providing their required 50% points to medium trees. Again, as there's limited area due to easements and limited space along the frontage. But they have worked with Public Works and the city forester to provide 4 overstory trees, which will actually be in the public right-of-way along Pearl Avenue, to kind of offset that BSM for the lack of the medium trees for the street frontage. Also, they are short on yard landscaping points. However, for the overall site, they do have more total landscaping than required by code. So they're kind of offsetting that yard landscaping with that total landscaping requirement. And there's, again, site constraints that they have very little yard area to meet that particular requirement. During construction, they're proposing to have the site enclosed with 6-foot tall chain link fencing with like a mesh banner with the graphics on it. It'll be similar to what's shown here, as it's 6-foot chain link in a front yard and also having signage. It does require a BSM, but staff is supportive of that. It will only be up during construction. Here's their lighting plan. So it appears they're meeting lighting levels for the entire parking lot. They're proposing a decorative style light fixture. Staff is recommending a condition that the light fixtures are consistent with the poles and fixtures of the neighboring Aurora site to the south, so that those parking lots have similar lighting. So here are the proposed facades. They are requesting a BSM to allow fiber cement and metal panels as a class 1 material. So along with those materials and brick and glass, they'll be at about 100% for all facades. So staff did look at the fiber cement and metal panels, and we came to the conclusion that it's a high quality and comparable material with other class 1 materials. So we are supportive to consider that a class 1 material. So again, here's the facade. So first floor is mostly brick and glass. Then you have the fiber cement and metal panels along with the glass for the upper stories.
And we do have a full set of samples if any plan commission members want to see them. I just didn't know if we wanted to actually be passing things around today. But
Can you hold them up?
Jeff, can you, specifically if you could hold up the Nietzsche panel, which is the... I'll just come up there.
I know, I was going to say we may have Vanna White's replacement here.
Have a microphone. If I talk really loudly, hopefully he doesn't yell at me. These are the 2 Nietzsche panels. They're one of the top ends of fiber cement products. We've looked at these in the past for a number of various projects. As we've talked, not all fiber cement products are equal. Some are very thin and flake very easily. What we've found on projects we've looked at, that these Nietzsche products are very durable, high quality. They've been used on a lot of the high-end developments in the city, so we felt these were appropriate Class 1 style products, although they don't meet the exact letter of the ordinance, along with the metal panel that they're providing. And I don't know if I have a full sample of that in here. It's similar like what Oshkosh Corp did. It's a very high-end metal product. It's not some of the cheaper, tinny, thin stuff, which is why staff felt comfortable recommending these as equivalent Class 1 products.
Just a question then, are those the actual colors The red and the white?
The red is not. I do have the.
Color renderings shown here.
They're like a white, and I think the white is the correct one for that. This, I believe, is an ivory. They wrote on it. It's more of an ivory color of their actual.
Oh,
product.
okay.
The only sample they could get was in red to get us in time.
Gotcha. I just thought it would be kind of weird with I think there's orange on the building next to that. Like, it just might look kind of strange, right? I don't know. I'm not a color expert on siding, but
The renderings show a better job of the actual colors. It is not the red. And then Jeff has one of the brick products they're proposing as well.
kind of looks like concrete.
It's like got a metallic
It looks like
colored finish
Sage
to it.
Hall. The Sage Hall has that metallic look on campus.
So
A sheen.
staff
we'll call
believes they chose very high quality, durable products for their building. If I could mention a couple of other things to go along with what Brian said, if you could go back to just like the aerial, remind Planning Commission, this is a contaminated capped site, which is why the parking lot was built where it was when it was done several years ago, as well as the green space shown where it is. The property was capped and set up for a very specific building footprint to be developed. That's why some of this stuff is pushed closer to Jackson, closer to Pearl. That was intentional when the city did the parking lot cap and set this property up for development. That's one of the reasons this development has kind of grown and changed a little bit over, is trying to deal with the site constraints of a highly contaminated cap site and making sure they can only affect certain areas of that, which is why they had to go a little bit more vertical on this site to offset the fact that there are quite a bit of additional expenses to develop on a property of this nature. And of course, they do have that large overhead utilities, but that kind of bisects the southern to the southeast to northwest corner.
Are you still going?
Yeah, so as I've kind of gone through, that was the end of my slides. We are requesting a number of BSMs, but staff believes that they've significantly, they've met the offsets for those with landscaping, with high-quality building materials. So given the site constraints, they have met the requirements pretty well. So staff is supportive of the request, and staff is supportive of the GDP amendment and SIP approval. Again, with the conditions and BSMs I went through that are listed in your staff report.
A couple more things I just want to add quickly. It's a very unique development. We haven't seen anything quite to this nature in Oshkosh yet. So it's an exciting, new, more urban style development that a lot of communities are seeing. It's our first test at it. Also, although it is zoned urban mixed use, it is more a central mixed use urban style development that we encouraged for this area. So that's why a number of the base standards are, if this was, say, CMU zoned a block to the east, they wouldn't need a number of these base standards. But as this is part of a greater 3-parcel area, we wanted to leave the zoning and just handle things through the plan development instead of zoning each parcel kind of individually.
Technical questions? Go ahead, Kath.
There are 3 redevelopment sites, and this is one of them. The other one would be the vacant area in front of the water tower, and then the one on the river. Is that right?
Yes.
Take it
Correct.
back.
Those are the 3 sites.
Here, and then one here along the river.
That looks like parking, and it's not the right slide.
Yeah, this is the site we're looking at today.
Right.
These are the other 2 sites. So the water site, Jackson. And then the other site is site I, where they propose townhomes and parking.
I thought that was already developed.
No, both those sites are still vacant today.
Okay.
The site we're looking at today has a parking lot cap for some of the remediation.
Right.
And then a green space for the building.
Okay.
Other technical questions? All right, seeing none. Anyone here from the public to speak to this item today? We have a vacant building again. All right, close public comment. Do we have a motion to adopt the findings and recommendations stated in the staff report?
Second.
Lindsay and Kathy? Discussion. Go ahead, Tom.
So once again, we're talking about a whole bunch of residential places, and from what I heard earlier in the discussion was mostly studios and ones. Kind of hoping for a couple of twos, and definitely hoping for some totally wheelchair accessible units as part of those ones and twos. And I really think that it should be a requirement on developments of a certain size to have that available because of the extreme shortage we have in the area.
Thank you, Tom. Mayor?
Yes, and speaking to that point, it was my request when we had those discussions previously, and it's my understanding that they will have a number of the units that will be accessible in terms of visitation, but then and also a number that would be accessible in terms of the resident itself. So I'm certainly in agreement with you on that, Tom. But I'm kind of torn here because while that may be part of the residential is that accessibility, and I'm really pleased that they're supporting density and going vertical and decreasing parking, because some of my other concerns are about the dumpster being closer to the street, the removal of the trees, the removal of the outdoor rec space, and reducing the landscaping along Jackson Street. So I'm torn on this one.
Yeah, and I can talk to a couple of those that, as we dealt with them. The Jackson Street reduction of tree landscaping is one of those intentional things, is when we set up the building pad, there was not sufficient room left for landscaping along that area. That's why we asked them to work with Public Works and the Forestry Department to provide additional landscaping in the right-of-way along Pearl. That was the best we could do, because we knew when we set up where that green space was, it was intended for an urban style development. If this was, for example, CMU across the street, they wouldn't even be required that landscaping period. So this is one of those situations where if it, as an urban development, they're not required, would not be required to do that. Same thing with the outdoor recreation space. If this was CMU zone, they would be exempt from that requirement as well.
Other thoughts? Tom again.
So I do also share some of the mayor's concerns that she brought up. I'm comfortable with the outdoor recreation because we are so close to the river and other areas, and people need to move their tails in order to do some things rather than just out their door. I am very concerned about the dumpster location and space. My assumption based on what I'm seeing is that dumpster is not only available for a grocery store or a food business, and as our chairman knows, there's a lot of garbage that comes with that, but also for the residents. And the residents, how well are they going to take care of that? Are they going to leave doors open? Are they? It's a concern of mine. I do not see another alternative. I hate to be the person that says I don't like it without having an alternative, but I am concerned with some of those things as well.
Kathy?
Well, I think it's an exciting development, and yes, it's got issues. It doesn't have everything we want, but then it has been pointed out that it's a difficult urban site and a contaminated site, and so it is what it is. I can appreciate Tom's concern about accessibility, but I think until we put something in our ordinance, we cannot insist on accessibility. We really need, if we desperately want accessibility on X number of units in a future building, we need to put it in the ordinance. And so
Thankfully, we have.
we can urge them, we can hope that they would do it, maybe we can provide incentive for them, but we can't require it.
If only we knew some members of the council present that might be able to take this up at the council level. If you know anybody, we could let them know. Other thoughts? I do think this, I like it. I think there are some, the dumpster enclosure, I remember being involved with building projects on campus, and we spent more time talking about dumpster placement and access than almost any other thing related to the site, because there's almost never a good spot to put it, and it's almost never big enough for what you need. And I think that's a legit concern. Other items?
Just out of curiosity then, was there no other location on, as I read it, the dumpster enclosure would be on the Jackson Street side. Is there not an option for
It's
that
on
to
the
be? or
Pearl
is-
Street side.
Oh, it's on the Pearl Street side.
Yep.
Okay, my mistake. I thought it was on the Jackson Street side.
Now, we tried working with them to find a location that could be easily accessed and not significantly impact parking. And Brian can attribute to it. We really struggled with finding something that worked. I don't think we have an elevation of that side, but we've seen some elevations. They're really trying to integrate it almost into that corner of the building, the way it's being screened and landscaped to hide it
Best they can.
It's a dumpster. They're trying to do the best they can with it.
Sure.
But we share your concerns. I mean, you very rarely see us agree with dumpsters in the front yard unless they're adequately screened and there's no better option. And without significantly impacting the parking, we couldn't find a better solution in this case.
Other thoughts? Okay, let us vote.
Erickson?
Aye.
Ford?
Present.
Hintz?
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
Prop?
Aye.
Wojtek?
Aye.
Carries 6-0.
All right, any other items for us today, gentlemen?
That is it. We will not be having a May 5th Plan Commission meeting as of right now. We'll be doing similar to this month, looking to have one Plan Commission meeting only. We're waiting on a little bit of clarification from council about the ability to add some maybe virtual options. So we'll see if that is available for the next meeting. I know we had some Plan Commission members today that would have liked to have joined us virtually if they could have. So we're going to continue to kind of find out from those discussions and see where it goes.
All right.
I guess I just add that, as some of you may have noticed, there was a notice of observation for council participation, as we have some newly elected council members here. That will be changing over the next month as appointments and reappointments are shifted, so.
All right, thank you. Anything else before we call it quits? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? We're gone. Thank you. Good
Thank
job,
you,
staff.
everyone.
Thank you.
That's the longest.